Hi, beautiful people. Welcome to our channel. So today I have a very special guest, as you can see right here. And it's really interesting how we met. We actually met through YouTube. I left a comment on this video that was recommended to me by the algorithm. And then Dr. Lee found me through that channel. And then he reached out to me thinking maybe we can do some collaboration on just language learning or even just our experience as international people in the US. And that's why we decided to do this experiment on talking about various topics here. So why don't you introduce yourself briefly to my audience and your audience if they don't know you?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me here, Dee. So my name is Guo. Currently I have my own company. I've started a startup recently to help people to find their job in data science. So the reason I reached out to Dee was, helping a lot of people, right? Most of them are Chinese.
Right.
We are struggling a lot, especially finding jobs in the United States. We're struggling a lot with English speaking. The I found actually
Right.
Dee has just been here for about 2 years.
Yes, over
And
2 years probably.
yeah, but she speaks amazing English, right? So I
No.
was very interested to see, whether I can learn anything from her, and also we can collaborate to help our students.
Right,
To,
exactly.
Mhm.
Thank you. So here's how we're gonna approach this video. We're gonna kind of briefly talk about our separate experience learning Chinese, learning English both in China and in the US, and what kind of struggles we've faced and what we're still trying to learn, and what also worked for us, because even though for people who speak English and who have been exposed to it since a very young age, it doesn't seem to be a big deal for us to talk this way, this fluently. But if you know how hard it is to actually acquire a second language, especially if you don't have that environment, if you don't grow up in a place where most people speak that language, it's so much more difficult, especially for the spoken part. That's why we want to see if we can exchange some ideas and then see how it goes from there. I'm going to just do some introduction for myself first, and then I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Lee. So for me, I grew up in Beijing, and I have been speaking Chinese my whole life, and nobody in my family speaks a word of English growing up. So I didn't have that great of an environment growing up learning a foreign language. But then I actually went to the US in the year of in my freshman year of high school it was a winter camp. So it was only like 2 weeks. But through that experience, I saw how amazing everything was outside of where I was growing up, and then how much bigger the world was. But the problem was I was trying to make some friends, local friends, but then I found that I couldn't just speak up. My mouth was like sealed shut because I didn't know how to speak and I couldn't understand what people were saying as well. So it was really frustrating. So when I went back to China, I just kind of started reading a lot of novels and then started getting exposed to TV shows and movies. And my first American TV show was The Big Bang Theory. I'm pretty sure, Dr. Lee, you
Yeah.
know it as well. Right. So that introduced me to the world of English learning, so to speak. And then when I entered college, I actually studied teaching Chinese to speakers of other languages. And then during that time, I applied for this study abroad foundation program. So I was able to be selected as an exchange student to visit Michigan for about 8 months. So I would say it was during that time I actually made some progress in my speaking English. And after that, I decided to come back to the US to get my master's, and I studied TOEFL, during which I discovered this method of just recording myself to deliver different kinds of ideas in English so that it can helps me almost create create a language environment for myself, even when it wasn't there. And so I was able to get a pretty decent score in my TOEFL exam, but then I fell in love with filming videos, and that's how I started my channel and then my just overall language learning journey as well. So Dr. Lee, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah. Actually, I have experienced, similar struggles, but in the worst way. So, my major was physics, right? I have been learning physics for all time, but I came to the United States when I was 25.
Right.
Yeah. So before that, I should say I had learned English before I came here, but in the Chinese way, as other
Yep,
people, right? I
exactly.
read a lot, write a lot, but I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. So the first place I stayed in the United States was Tennessee.
Yep.
So yeah, so that place is not as diverse as California, right? So when I stay here, although I had learned so much English, I felt I really couldn't understand what people say, and they
I
couldn't
know.
understand me. Yeah, that was kind of a little bit shock, right? I spent 1 decade before I came to the United States, but I couldn't understand them.
Yes.
Yeah, after that, I spent kind of half a year try to correct my pronunciation, right? Speak the way people here speak, rather than put the sounds from borrow the sounds from Chinese into English
Right.
words, right? That
Right.
was the first thing. The second story was in 2017. So I decided to make the transition from academia into industry. So that was a big change to me because although by that time I've been staying in the United States for several years, but I just did research, talk to my family. So I didn't have much time to
Right.
communicate with other people. I didn't have to, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, so when I tried to make the transition into the industry, I had to interview. I had to speak to other people. So at that time, step by step, after maybe 1 or 2 years, I became more fluent in English speaking, and even more, I began to think about things in English. So that was the two big changes to myself. Right.
That's incredible. So I was wondering, during your time in the college, you were doing research. What was your social life like?
Uh,
Were you making attempts to maybe meet some American friends or kind of going to events like that?
Yeah, I had to, right? Especially in physics society, we have kind of the annual meetings, which we call March meeting, with all the
Right.
scientists all over the world come to the United States to talk about their research results. Although there are quite some chances, but sometimes it's much easier to talk to other people who also speak Chinese.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so it's kind of a thing, even in the lab, we have different people, right? We have the people, they are from the United States, they were born in the United States, and, people from Europe, from South America, all people in the same building doing research.
Right.
But during lunch, I usually had lunch with those Chinese fellows. That was not the
Yeah.
environment.
Right. I think that it must be kind of a struggle for you to make the first initiative and then start talking to people from other backgrounds in English. And especially, I guess, when you were first entering the campus and fresh off the boat or by the airplane,
Yeah.
Boba, was it kind of intimidating for you? Because I know it was for me. And how did you transition from being not able to speak as fluently to being able to convey your message pretty well?
Oh, that took me quite a while, right? The first
Right.
time, the first several days when I came there, when I tried to talk to them. So sometimes I think, oh yeah, I kind of know the word, but how to pronounce it. So I need a
Right.
lot of time to think about that. And the most difficult part was, when they spoke, I couldn't understand. So I was like,
Yes.
yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know whether you have this experience or not, especially when we were in China, right?
Yes.
We learned, most of the things is about exams. You
Exactly.
listen to a tape, you have to understand it quickly and write down the answers. So that
Right.
was
Right.
kind of, when you heard English, you were very nervous.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it took me quite a while. So then I realized, actually, if I don't understand, I can ask. Pardon, I don't
Yes.
understand you. Could you repeat that? So I don't know the meaning of the word. Can you say? Can you explain a little bit to me? Right.
Right.
After I was comfortable about saying that, the things become easier.
Yes, I totally relate to that because I remember just seeing everything. You actually want to engage in their conversations,
Mm,
but sometimes even you know the word in Chinese, but you
mhm,
just don't know how to say it in English. And then also because we studied English in China only for the exam,
mm,
we never got to learn actually the English idioms that well.
mhm.
And sometimes when people say some words, some phrases that individually we can understand those words, but when you put them together, it just sounds off. For
Mhm,
example, like at the crack of the dawn, it's basically just very early, very
mhm.
early. But if you've never learned about idioms, then that can be very strange to you. And
Yeah, even now it sounds strange to me.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. I'm very cynical about English education in China. I think it
Mhm,
was the single most efficient way of producing struggles for international students,
mhm,
because even though you learned all the grammars under the sun, you know you can score perfectly on the paper. But when you are put in that kind of high pressure in-person situation, your brain just kind of went blank because you don't know how to talk to real people, and everything is all about getting that answer correct. And in real life there's nobody will care about your grammar. All they care about is whether you can get to the point and whether you can make sense of what you're trying to say.
yeah.
So that took me a long while because at the beginning I was so afraid of making mistakes in grammar that sometimes it took me way longer than necessary to even form a coherent sentence. And then by the time I was able to think about something, people already have moved on to other
Mhm,
topics.
mm.
So that was kind of a transition for me. I wonder, when you were growing up in China, did you guys practice speaking at all in in the class?
We did practice for sure, but not the correct way, right? So maybe you remember, right? In many Chinese campus, there are called English corners, right?
Right, right,
Sometimes
right.
we went there, but I don't think that was very helpful. Especially you're talking to other people who was native language was Chinese too, right?
Right, right,
Sometimes you just speak the incorrect way, but the other people was not able to point it out. So
right.
yeah, that was not very helpful. And also sometimes you will kind of like maybe even further in an incorrect way. Yeah.
Right. It's I hate to use it, but sometimes it might feel like blind leading the blind.
Mhm,
Nobody knows what they're doing, and then if you don't know whether this, for example, phrase is correct, then if you keep using it in the inaccurate way, then people still won't be able to understand you when you try to use that uh, in the context that doesn't fit. Also in China, I feel like another thing is the problem with Chinese students. A lot of them didn't come to the U.S. with the idea of becoming or thinking like an American. They still stick to their own little group. And
mhm,
then they still think the way that Chinese do. They still look at the media
mhm,
that's in Chinese. And even on YouTube, they watch all of the Chinese YouTubers. They
mhm.
never watch actually English speaking YouTubers. And that can also be a part of the problem, because if you don't change your mindset, if you don't change your way of thinking, then it's pretty hard to actually transform. It's almost like, for me, learning English is like building another identity. I think there are people doing research on this in linguistics.
Mhm.
People who can speak multiple languages have different language identities.
Mhm.
So for us, our first language, so L1 identity is our Chinese self. And
Mhm.
when we speak English, we become another person. So that's our L2 identity.
Interesting. Yeah, it's the first time I hear about that. Uh, yeah, I think here I think it's very common, right? Also for myself, even now, I've been here for more than 1 decade. I still read a lot of Chinese books, watch Chinese
Right.
videos. Although, I think you're right. So actually, I play kind of two identities, right? The first identity is kind of like still as a Chinese people who live
Right.
in the United States. And the other part is kind of like I am a data scientist. Well,
Yes.
yeah. So in the company, we all speak English.
Yes.
So sometimes it's really hard to merge these two together. I think
Right.
it's very common for the first generation immigrants, in the
Yes.
United States. Yeah, not only for Chinese people. So especially in California, right? We have lots of people from all over the world.
Right.
Uh, with different culture. So actually, this is a part I feel very comfortable about here in the United States, especially in California. I don't need to
Yes.
worry about my accent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think that was also the second thing I learned, especially So I was not in that high pressure in
Yes.
speaking correctly, but I can focus more on the goal, how to deliver the message correctly.
Right, right, exactly. It's always the point. I feel like even when we were in China,
Mhm.
most people would put a lot of emphasis on whether you're speaking American English or British English, what kind of accent you have, and then do you sound like a native speaker or not? When it's almost impossible for a person who never grew up in the target language environment to sound like a native speaker. They can sound native-like, but they will almost never become exactly like a native speaker. Even though I tried very hard to get rid of my Chinese accent, I actually tried, like how you went through. I found this series of pronunciation instructions on
Mhm.
how to pronounce certain vowel sounds, consonant sounds, and how to change your intonation to sound more natural and all that stuff. But I still have Chinese accents here and there. And that's totally fine
Yeah.
because that's our identity. That's what makes us different. That's exactly how I changed my way of looking at English as well. When you forgo that restriction, it becomes even easier and you don't feel as scared when you open your mouth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. One more thing about that was kind of especially in the Bay Area, right? So I
Right,
really enjoy people from different places, and they have totally different accents. I
right.
really enjoy the diversity, right? Sometimes you feel, oh yeah, the way he or she speaks is really cute, right?
Yes,
Not necessarily American way, but maybe some European way or some Latino way, right?
right,
So I really think those. Also, United States. United States is such a huge country.
right.
There are also accents, there's some difference between states. So it's very interesting. So I think, the first thing, the other thing I learned from here is like, don't worry about your accents, right? So because English itself is very diverse.
Right,
Uh, yeah, so the first thing is just enjoy the conversation.
right, right.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
if I think that's the thing I think is super helpful. Yeah, once you speak in that way, you enjoy the conversation. You forget about the grammar, the so-called correct pronunciation. Just
Yes.
enjoy the information you exchange, and I think that will be the best way to practice.
I cannot agree more.
Mm.
This is so important because even when I was in grad school learning about the second language acquisition class,
Mhm.
we were talking about what actually matters for a L2 speaker, for somebody who's learning a second language. It's actually the intelligibility and comprehensibility, these two factors. So intelligibility is people can tell what you're trying to say. Each individual, even though you can have accent, people can still tell, be able to distinguish your words, what you're trying to say. And then comprehensibility means whether you can say words or say sentences in a coherent way so that people can get your message. And that's all that matters.
Mhm.
So that was a great point that you brought up.
Yeah, thanks. I think the most important thing I learned during the past 1 decade dating in the United States.
Yes, because this is a huge thing because a lot of people feel self-conscious when they have accent or when they have grammar mistakes. And then they're going to miss on a lot of great things, great conversations if they're just so self-conscious about their accent. And actually, before I came to the US, I thought people would look down on you if you have an accent, but it actually doesn't work that way. People actually appreciate your ideas as long as you can make sense of your own sentence.
Actually, this reminds me one very interesting experience. The first place I stayed in the United States was Tennessee, right?
Right.
So that place was not as diverse as California. So when I first went there, so they knew that I was not a native speaker. They were trying to speak slowly when talk to me.
Right.
But when I came to California, there are so many people from all over the whole world. They just speak as fast as they can. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's very different. but in neither of these places, I find any people have looked down at me because I have accent, right? Other people here,
right.
both in Tennessee or California, they are very friendly. Sometimes I think maybe we just imagine them as the English teachers, right? English teachers where they are going to score you. Hey, you have accent. You lost the point. Yeah, right. That way, they are very friendly. They try to help you, right? They understand you, right? When I was in Tennessee, they were those people. I was playing ping pong in a ping pong club. Those people were very friendly. They were very curious about my experience. So hey, what did you learn? So what kind of research you are doing now here, right? So a lot of things very interesting. So we learn about each other, learn about the culture thing. Although I have a very strong accent at that time, they were not able to understand fully, but the conversation was fun. And here, in California, that's another thing, right? Most people here have different accents, and we're totally fine. And we found, oh yeah, interesting. You're from some places. Talk about the culture there, right?
I love that. Yeah, I really do. And then even in Midwest, where there's a smaller Asian or international population, you can still see people treating each other nice. And when they learn that you're from China, they get curious and then they want to learn about you. And it's really different once you're here, and that's definitely the message we want to tell people. Accent really shouldn't be the one thing that makes you self-conscious, and people don't usually judge you based on your accent. And I noticed that Dr. Lee, you look very confident when you speak, and I think for a lot of Chinese speakers, well, Chinese students in particular, they get very intimidated when they talk in English. So could you tell us, how did you overcome that and become more confident?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, it took me quite a while too. So one thing is, in Chinese culture, it's not usually people don't look at people's eyes, right?
Yes.
So usually we just look, in the other ways. It took me a while, so I found that was not very good, especially here, right? If you don't look directly into people's eyes, it's kind of like not very good method to communicate. Sometimes you give people an impression that you are not concentrating on the conversation, right? So, and then it took me a while. So I just told myself, look, when I talk, right? Look at the eyes.
Yes.
Don't move away. Focus on that there. It took me quite a few months to get used to the way when I talk to people in that way. But maybe nowadays when I go back to China, maybe that was not maybe I look the way again.
Right, that could be too intense for people back home.
Yeah, so that's one way. So the other thing, still, as I said before, when I focus on the conversation itself, I just forget, all the grammar, the words, pronunciation. I just forget everything. So I just enjoy everything. For example, now I'm enjoying the conversation. So I totally have no idea how the pronunciation sounds like. So I don't care anymore.
Doesn't matter. And yes, doesn't matter at all. And exactly, I feel like treating people as human, treating Americans as human, just see them as just people like us. The uniqueness of Chinese or even other international visitors who are from East Asia is that we grow up in a very homogenous environment.
Mm-hmm.
We were surrounded by only Chinese people, or we only rarely see some foreign tourists or visitors, and even so, we don't usually talk to them. And now when we're surrounded by people from so many different backgrounds, and it's pretty easy to see them not as not as people like us. And when you don't see them as I don't want to say like humans, but as different kinds of people, you might get kind of intimidated because you feel like, oh, so you have this binary them and us, this concept. And then you might get some, you might just kind of feel like there's a wall between you two. And once you're able to break down that wall and then see them as people who have emotions and people who you can relate to, that's when things start to become easier. And when you can just look them in the eyes, because you're just two people trying to get to know each other, just having a great time. And I think that's what helped me too, just knowing that people in all kinds of places struggle like we do, and they have their own insecurities, and they have also other interesting facts about themselves that we can learn from. So just humanizing people.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's very interesting, and also that's one we also need communication to achieve that point, right? So my father has stayed here for kind of a few months. So before that, he had never gone abroad. So he arrived in the United States the first time he left China, right, to other foreign country. So he was very excited and very nervous.
Yes.
But after a few months, he said, "Hey, it's kind of very similar like the life we have in China."
Yes.
Everybody just live the life, right? So do the things, worry about things. They say, yeah, it's we're all human beings, we are the same, right? So and also my father, he speaks barely any English, but he enjoyed life here. So especially when he talked to other people, right? He just used several very single English words in Chinese pronunciation. He was able to communicate. So that was also a lesson to me. Yeah, you don't need to learn so many English words before you can communicate.
Exactly. You don't need all the fancy words. Right, to deliver messages. And that's something I want to say too, because I feel like the overall climate on politics hasn't been that well. And then I can see people demonizing each other through watching news. And I feel like we should, if we want to truly embrace the culture and the language, if we want to study the language well, we gotta ditch all of those impressions. Just be humble, and then re-examine our environment, and then people, cultivating almost this curiosity of other people who grew up in a totally different culture. And then it's really enjoyable to just learn individual people's stories, right? Doesn't matter where they're from.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, awesome. And I wonder, so maybe in the last, our time is almost up. Would you want to maybe summarize some of the points that we've touched on how to maybe improve our spoken English for Chinese students?
Two things maybe. The first thing is just forget the grammar, forget the words. Just enjoy the conversation. That's the first most important thing. And the second thing I think is really known, right? Just practice more.
Yes.
Especially put you into the environments, you have to speak English.
Right.
If you have other choices, you're going to not choose that at the first time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's why we're doing this in English. We're showing you you can do it in all kinds. You can create opportunities for yourself to practice English. Right. We're now trying to film in English to show off almost. No, this is just a demonstration of what you can do. Yeah, and then I remember you also mentioned to just see people in the eyes and then just forget about everything else and put yourself out there almost.
Yeah, that's correct.
My suggestions are pretty similar. First of all, you got to learn some basic pronunciation. For example, vowels. English vowels are so important because they're very different from our pinyin. And once you're able to master all of the vowel sounds, it's much easier to improve your intelligibility. So that's what we want, not to get rid of your accent, but improve your intelligibility. I remember you told me one incident with with the word volunteer.
Yeah,
Could you
yeah,
share?
that was just a few days after I arrived the United States, right? So I was in the University of Tennessee. So
Right.
there, the card for students is called the VOC card, right? It's a volunteer card, something like that.
Yes.
I was pronouncing the word in the Chinese way, so I call voca. So they didn't understand, right? For sure.
Right.
Mhm.
Yes.
So it took me kind of half a year it was very hard, especially the R sound, L sound.
Right.
The
Right.
most difficult is L sound. It took me kind of a few weeks to say it correctly. Yeah.
Right, because there's a I forgot to mention this, but probably in the future we can talk more. There's the phenomenon called fossilization for people, for older learners. We've spoken our first language for so long that our tongue muscle memories have already been fossilized. So it's harder to change our muscles. So that's one biggest challenge for us, but it's still possible to push ourselves and make small changes. Our potentials for change is incredible.
Yeah.
So yes, definitely. Once you have improved your intelligibility, you can then move on to just putting yourself out there, create as many opportunities as possible to talk to people from different cultures and language backgrounds. Anything else to add? Maybe one last thing to say for whoever that is watching here?
Yeah, just speak. Don't be afraid.
Right, that's the bottom line. You will make a lot of mistakes. You got to push through this. You got to push through that embarrassment and then keep going and keep making mistakes. That's the only way to get better.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for joining my discussion. And I really enjoy having the conversation with you today.
Yeah,
And
I did that too. Yeah, thank you for having me.
yeah, it's my pleasure. And I hope maybe in the future we can do some collaboration again on either language learning or just life in general in the US for immigrants, first generation immigrants.
Yeah, sure. Of course.
All right. Thank you so much. We will see each other soon.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Bye.